What's up, everybody? It's Soren Baker here on Unique Access Entertainment. Thanks for coming through. If you haven't already, please subscribe. It's right down there and it's free. That enables us to keep coming to y'all as often as possible. Now, today, we have the honor and the privilege of being joined by X-Rated. Thank you for coming through,
Hey,
sir.
absolutely, man. I wouldn't have it no other way.
Yeah, man, I've been knowing Andre for a long time, man. So I'm glad we finally got to make it official here on Unique Access Entertainment. So thank you and shout out to Richie Abbott and the people of Strange Music for getting us reconnected because we had been in touch for so long and then lost track a little bit. But X-Rated has the new song after the interview. Definitely check it out, called "The Sunken Place." And one of the first things striking to me about watching the video, and I wanted to get your opinion on this, but the Rubicon video you had a few years ago, it seemed like you were wearing a similar or the same hat that you had in the Sunken Place, or at least aesthetically it looked like it. Was that intentional? Did I just imagine that? Is that real? Like, what do you?
I don't recall wearing a hat in a sunken place at all. Oh, actually, yeah, I see what you mean. The when I put on the outfit from the Get Out outfit. Yeah, I don't think I wore that hat in Rubicon. To my knowledge, I think I had a baseball cap on in Rubicon, but California Dreaming video, I think I had the golf hat on. I think I did have the golf hat on.
All right.
California Dreaming video.
Well, anyway, it kind of reminded me of it anyway. But since we're talking about the video, let's get into that before we get to the content of the song explicitly. How did you come up with the idea and the concept to want to do this video the way that you did it?
Okay, so I'm a huge Jordan Peele fan, number one. Uh love his work from Get Out to Us and Nope. And I incorporated elements of all three of those inside of the song. They're kind of metaphorically hidden in there. She doesn't like his shoes. Nope. Doesn't like his clothes. Nope. Or the part where it's like nothing left for us to do except to just divorce and heal and stop living life like our story was written by Jordan Peele. So I got Us and Jordan Peele and the Nope, and then to Get Out in the chorus. Uh, Song comes about after a conversation with Big Dooney, 29th Street. We were having a conversation about formerly incarcerated men who come home, who are in relationships prior to being paroled, and then come home and discover that their perception of life, the world, all the sacrifices that they have to make and the sacrifices that they're grateful that the women made don't necessarily line up. One of those things, one of the big discussions was a lot of times formerly incarcerated men didn't have an opportunity to have children. Those of us who did extensive time, for me, it was 26 years, 5 months, and 26 days. And for Dooney, it was 20, 27 some odd years. He was incarcerated 2 years before me and came home like 2 months after me. So he did like 28 years. And so he never had children. He was he was incarcerated as a juvenile. And so you come home, you haven't had children, but your significant other has had an opportunity to do that. So you, if they can't or are not interested in having children, you forego that and you can never do it. And for someone like, for those of us who didn't have children and were incarcerated, we come home. For me, I'm the last male Brown in my bloodline. So it's like the necessity for me to have a son was significant, and my family didn't allow me to not be aware of that. The elders in my family very much consistently would say, hey, is Honore coming yet? Is he coming yet? By name and the name for him, everything. And so, it created this conversation just about how you come home and there's your desires for what your life needs are and what your family needs are in conflict with those of your significant other. And then where does that, when the reality clashes with the fantasy, because ultimately it is a fantasy, we just don't know it. We're not aware of it because incarceration, we're inside of this bubble and it's almost like what I tell people, how the brain represses horrible memories for certain victims where they just can't recall, or they recall it in a distorted way because the brain is just trying to protect them from the horror of the experience, or what shock does with the person who lost their arm and they can't even feel it, but they're in a state of shock. Like I just got my arm hacked off. It's like that. I feel like we're not aware, those of us who have done either indeterminate sentences, life sentences, or extended, significantly extended sentences, are not aware of how many things we are unaware of. They call it metacognizance. We are Metacognizance is the awareness that you are aware. You're aware. You know what you know, and it's almost the exact opposite of metacognizance, where we don't know what we don't know. We're just completely unaware, and so that kind of informs Sunken Place for me, wanting to be able to speak for that population, utilizing some of my own personal experiences, which weren't necessarily all um, as described in the song. Some of it was drawn from the movies and other people's experiences in order to be able to be a voice for that population. But other things were drawn from my personal experience as well.
So with that, with Sunken Place and throughout your career, you've told a lot of stories consistently. So Ice-T, shout out to Ice-T as always, he calls it faction, where it's like facts and fiction kind of blended together to make a good story. How have you seen your ability or your usage of that over the years kind of evolve and shift and adapt as you grow as a songwriter, as an artist?
Ironically, Psychoactive is probably 80% stories. And so I came in the game as a storyteller. I'm old enough to have been a part of the origin story of hip hop and young enough to be a part of its current status, its current stage that it's in this era. So I got to see it all, either as a fan for 17 years and a participant for my entire life after that. And so the MCs that I respect, and I say that in present tense, including Ice-T, uh, they were storytellers. They told very, very, very good stories. 6 in the morning. I actually, ironically, one of the significant contributing factors to things that happened in my life. I was eating a bowl of cereal, listening to 6 in the morning when I got the call that my maternal grandmother had passed away. So like Ice-T is burned into that memory for me, the way it feels. I can smell it. I remember everything in that song. All that is burned into that song from the big homie. But Ice-T as a songwriter, from Colors to 6 in the morning, and then Ice Cube, who to me was like the greatest rapper of all time in his prime. That run to me, the what they think of Lil Wayne or what J. Cole is currently doing, and people like that. To me, that was Ice Cube. And as a songwriter, he was a storyteller over half the time, almost over half the time, even if there were compartmentalized stories in each verse, where he just told one story here, one story here, one story here. You had three verses that were three compartmentalized stories sewn together with the chorus, or one continuous story. And that's with N.W.A. and without N.W.A. Boys in the Hood is a good example of that early in his career, being a storyteller. And then the other MC who was significantly influential for me, um, Scarface, a storyteller, a very emotionally intelligent storyteller. Uh, and so the MCs that I thought were superheroes, and I mean, I could say Cool G Rap, and as much as people sleep on Uncle Short and Too Short as an MC, he's an amazing storyteller from the beginning. And cuss words was a story. He was telling a story. It was just funny. It was a Dolomite type story. But then even you have the ghetto and things like that. So the MCs who molded me into who I became and who I wanted to be, Slick Rick, all those guys told amazing stories. And I thought as an MC that I had a duty to do that. So then I started looking into deliveries, studying deliveries, cadences, who is killing it with that and why. Shout out to the Beastie Boys too for License to Ill. Like, come on, Paul Revere. You know what I mean? It's a story. And
Here's a little
so,
story I got to tell.
right, it was literally off the bat, it's a story. And so I looked at cadences and then got into understanding metaphor, similes, all the things that I believe are ingredients. It's not even my belief, it's hip hop's belief, and the people are studying and they can see it clearly that all of the elite MCs have had these particular ingredients. And it goes with being a storyteller, having a cadence delivery style that is as unique as you can get it at this point where everyone has done almost everything, but you want to be as distinguishable, as distinctive a voice and distinctive of a flow pattern, default flow style as you can possibly get. And then make sure you got your simile metaphor game up to par. And so that all kind of came together with Psychoactive with me focusing mostly on story. And then as that album progressed, I think by that sickness, the delivery on that is about as modern right now as anybody's flow just from that one song. And I think being around Lynch was very informative in that regard because at the time, I considered him to be one of the best deliverers of a rhyme that I had ever experienced, I had ever heard. And so having me and him together as somebody who his kung fu style being that cadence in that voice, we have always had similar voices and coming from I don't know if it's in the water in the south side or what, but me and Lynch have always kind of sounded alike voice wise, but we had distinctive differences in our deliveries and our writing styles and subject wise. And that was how we separated ourselves and complemented each other. And I think being exposed to him was really good for me as a 16-year-old with somebody that I consider a brother who was 22 years old already, hey, and walking around just mauling different styles at just with ease. And so it made me aware, like you got to be able to spit. And so there was this graduation, this maturation that happened by the time I got to writing on Season of the Sickness and what became Exorcist. By the time we got there, I feel like I was definitely I had my black belt by then.